Hi, I'm Dr. Philippe Max Rouge, the Custodian of Historic Wrecks for the Islands of Bermuda in the Ministry of the Environment and the Department of Conservation Services. We hope you enjoyed this series of short vignettes on Bermuda's historic shipwrecks, hosted by some of Bermuda's premier maritime explorers.
Well, his name is Teddy Tucker. I was born here 81 years and 3 days ago. My first boat was a log, great big log, and I used to sit on and paddle around, and it didn't leak, didn't turn over. First job I ever had was down at the aquarium, down there cleaning tanks, and they had a dive operation, a helmet dive operation. And for $1, a tourist could come and go down in Harrington Sound. And I had to pump, and there was no time limit. We used to go down there. That was the first experience of getting underwater and being able to breathe. I guess when I was 8 or 10 years old, the fishermen used to take me fishing, and the wreck sites, especially a fairly modern one, Ironwood, was always a good fishing place. But that's where I got interested in the fishermen. They'd go out and they'd take the marks. There's no modern electronics or anything you have today. And they'd go along, go past this reef, you'd know this reef here, and this is the one you turned, you went here, and there was another cut up here, and the sailboats were deep, and you knew it like your backyard. After the war, the first thing I did when I came back here was bought an old boat and fixed it up, and I put a couple of glass ports in the bottom forward with a bit of an angle for wintertime looking, and then we used to tow. Get one person when they put a mask on, shark bait, trolling for sharks. Because a lot of sharks in those days. You look behind sometimes, you see 2 or 3 little sharks and be following you. And even today, the barracudas will follow you. Well, I've looked at probably not dumps, but where a ship sunk or wrecked. I think around 120 or so. Blanche King was coming here for the bunkering company with a load of coal. She had made previous trips here. And it was bad weather, or it had been foggy, misty weather, and just got, instead of being down there for up here another 2 or 3 miles coming in, he had probably knew he was near Bermuda, but by the time he found out where he was up on the rocks. The Blanche King's an interesting boat. They built 4 schooners like her in Maine, and they had centerboards, had drop keels in them, which was unusual for a 200-foot boat. But they were designed for, they were called bunker schooners, bunkering. They carried primarily coal, and I guess if it wasn't a coal, they'd go up the rivers in, I guess, North, South Carolina to wherever they needed it. And they could, they were shallow, very long, shallow, fairly wide ships. They were known to be good sailors, fast boats. You had the mainsails, topsails, and then the staysails, and you had your staysail and your in and outer and flying jib. And they'd get up to 12, 13 knots. They could make a good speed, and they could go to windward. This replaced the square riggers. She had a steam winch for pulling the anchors and a deck winch for pulling up the sails and stuff. It was a 4-masted schooner, a great big thing, probably 200 feet, the mast that big around. And they had 7 of a crew, captain and the cook, and if they didn't have the winch, they couldn't get the sails up. They got a lot of coal out of her. I got a picture of her somewhere. She's out there on the rocks, and she's down to almost deck level, and it's a barge alongside of her with a clamshell taking the coal out. The time when I saw it, I looked at it for many years before I knew it. I figured that sometimes she'd been on the rocks or something and she'd broken her back, because she had this great, probably sticks up in the centerboard case. It probably even today, after it's all eaten down, it probably sticks up, what, 4 or 5 feet. A fellow named Howard Chappell, who was the shipman for the wooden shipman for the United States, he asked me out of the blue, said if Blanche King was wrecked in Bermuda. And I said, yeah, I know where it is. She's loaded with coal. He said, well, she was one of 4 ships that were built with centerboards that big. And that was the answer to it. It's a centerboard box, probably made out of 4x4s or something. And I think originally it was about 25 feet long. And all the iron drift pins. The iron kept the worms from eating the wood away, and it still sits there. It's laid out on the bottom. You can still, it's from an aerial picture, you can still see a good footprint of it. And it's got the keel, and you can see where the sides were. It's not bad to dive, quite a bit for a wooden ship. If you know what it stands for, you know what this footprint signifies. It's a nice thing. If you get it just right, you can get some nice pictures off of it. And the winch is still there. The boiler, that just rusted away, just disappeared. The centerboard is still there, the box, keel chest or centerboard box, so it's a lot of different names for it. That's easily identified, and it's a lot of curl there, and some dead eyes. And the winch, the bow is pointed offshore. And one of her masts, or the bowsprit or something, was still on the rocks there. But they took the mast, and the rigging, and the sails, the booms. They got a lot of stuff out of them. The curl will always be there, and eventually it will be nothing but a bit of iron oxide and a load of coal. When did it have that big hurricane? 3 years ago? Fabian. It just scoured. It was wrecks out there that had been there buried for a couple of 100 years or more. And the only thing that's left now is the ballast. The Blanche King depends on how many hurricanes. I mean, you could get another hurricane and it could pretty well scrub all that centerboard box out. You'd always have the coal there, the cargo. That would be scattered all around all over the place.